So for us, having the data to design the structure of how you produce content for your users, and then the framework to report back how that performs and where the success is. And then ultimately to optimize that and to look to personalize and to iterate so that it continues to perform.
This is Velocitize Talks. I'm Andy North, and I'm joined today by Ian Daniels, Head of Digital at Yard Digital. Ian, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Andy. Good morning.
So let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about Yard Digital and how it differentiates itself in such a crowded market.
Yeah, so Yard's kind of uniquely positioned. So we're a technical implementation specialist of marketing technology and integrating and delivering marketing campaigns. So we straddle the world of the big system integrators and the network agencies, but are able to work in an agile and collaborative model that really offers clients true value and transparency on the way that their marketing technology is plumbed together, and how that translates up to understanding their customers through the data, through to executing successful campaigns in a measurable and compliant framework. So we're able to bring all of those pieces together through one system and one company, rather than the classic model of 5 or 6 different large organizations vying for the same piece of work.
Fantastic. You mentioned that it is a crowded area, and it is tough to differentiate yourself, and obviously you guys have a great model for it. Have you seen, with the growth of the MarTech stack, customers just coming to you and say, we don't know what to do, we're confused by this raw amount of technology?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite overwhelming if you're a program manager, a product owner, or someone responsible for a channel, and you're out there looking to review the vendors in the market. Typically, if we look at a vendor review, often there's those first big questions. Do you want to go for one of the big marketing clouds? You're going to go all in with one vendor. If you're looking at point solutions, best in breed, how do you plumb those together? Lots of organizations are increasingly looking for the flexibility and extensibility of open source. So they're saying, how can we make our experience platform open source and leverage all of the opportunity that affords, but also manage that in sort of an enterprise infrastructure. And we often walk them through the governance processes and help design the solution that fits their needs. And that could be a combination of everything that Adobe has to offer, or it could be best in breed, open source at the heart with enterprise marketing technology point solutions, some innovative startup to deal with really niche scenarios. So very much it is a buyer's market, but brands still need that experienced guiding hand to help them design a solution that's going to be suitable for their needs.
Well, obviously with multiple offices and global clients, there comes a lot of collaboration. Talk a little bit about how key that is and how crucial collaboration is, both within your organization and with your clients.
For us, it's the new agency model. Everything's evolving, and client needs very much need to be at the center of what we do, in the same way that we look to put consumers at the heart of the work we enable brands to do. We very much realized that the classic agency sales and scale model wasn't working. It wasn't adding enough value. And again, coming back to your point around a cluttered market and differentiation, we felt that we needed to look for something more. We've always been a very small part of a big cog within organizations like Adobe, where we're one of their specialist partners, through to our clients like Sainsbury's, British Gas, who we've worked with for the whole 14 years we've been around. We've always been a very small part of that. So the way that we've been able to scale ourselves and to add additional value that's kept us relevant to our clients is to collaborate and just to open up in the same way that you would with an open source platform and say, there's competitive overlap. So what? We're very good at these things we do. If you happen to do some of those too, great, good for you. There's plenty of work out there. And it took probably 3 years for us to get where we are now, but we now have a network of partners that all work under the same guiding principles and processes. We have clients that use those same processes to distribute their work globally. And for us, it's enabled us to grow our agency significantly, to be more than the sum of our parts. We're able to work on multi-solution deals across territories that I've never been to, let alone worked in. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and I really do think it's the future of marketing and technology agencies.
You have a very strong SEO background, obviously, and where do you see SEO evolving to? It's come a relatively long way in a short period of time. How do you see the continued evolution of SEO?
Well, it's a fascinating industry, which is why I guess it drew me as the sort of core focus early on in my sort of digital marketing career. And it's always been incredibly fast-paced and exciting, but at the same time, there's some guiding principles that have stayed constant throughout. And despite the input, technology that may evolve through, voice assistants, voice search, through, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these, new developments that at the core of it, brands and, consumers alike, brands need to provide performance applications and experiences and, offer their consumers relevant and suitable content or answers, and provide that in a way that keeps up with the latest developments and is discoverable by consumers and search engines alike, or other devices as they evolve. And for us, that's quite exciting, because it comes down to that getting your foundations right, making sure that all of the data, all of the structure of whatever platform you're serving your consumers on is as performant as it can be, and then taking it to the next level and helping them understand how best to serve their users' needs and serve that content to the right audience at the right time. And those principles have been around in marketing for a long time. It's just that that passionate understanding that those principles will drive success through SEO despite all the other changes. And we've been doing it for 10 years. We've got clients we've been working with for that long, and they still succeed in their endeavors to serve their consumers across the channels that they want to find them in. And it's an exciting ride, and I look forward to how it develops.
Yeah. We're here in London. You're based in Edinburgh. How has GDPR or how will GDPR affect you, your agency, your clients, and going forward?
I think there's still very much a bedding in period. I think consumers at the moment, from the data we've seen, very much are annoyed by some of the implementations of this sort of the need for compliance. I think a lot of clients and larger organisations, although they've started to put the right processes in place, it requires an organisational shift as much as a cultural one. I expect we'll still be seeing the full embedding of this legislation for a few years to come. I think for consumers, it has made them a little bit more mindful of their privacy online. It's made us more mindful of how we operate as a business. But I think for the intelligent brands, I think they're already at the point that they're planning how that they can enrich their customer profiles in a way that gives a value exchange in the sense of, if you're giving us more data, if you're trusting our services and products, then it's okay to provide us with enough information to give you, a user-centric experience, a personalized experience that makes you feel valued and removes friction and frustration. So there is that value exchange piece that really needs to be ironed out, across the rest of the market. But right now, I think we're still in the bedding in phase, and I think there's still some finessing to come of how brands are dealing with. It's either at the moment all or nothing, it seems. So seeing a lot of pop-ups where you just go deny or accept, and that's not very helpful for anyone.
Right.
We really need to get to that iterative preferencing in between, where we are giving those small microtransactions to consumers that help get that next step of identification, so that we can serve them in a way that fits our products and services.
You talked a little bit about the evolution of SEO and how technologies are changing rapidly. What technologies do you see coming to the fore in 3 to 5 years? Would it be AI? Would that play a greater role in what you provide for your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as much as there are some really exciting, potentially game-changing technologies out there, I mean, I've been keeping up with blockchain as it's developed and played around with some applications. I've been fascinated by some of the identity resolution plays that, like, the government in Jersey have put in place, and I think that's got a fundamental societal impact waiting to happen as it sort of matures. But on a day-to-day for our business over the next 3 to 5 years, it has to be the greater adoption and maturity of applied machine learning and artificial intelligence. And certainly, although it's been around for a lot longer than I have, those governing principles of machine learning, they are now becoming practical and useful. And we're seeing technology having layers that enable it to not automate, but streamline a lot of heavy lifting processes that enable, for example, web analysts to be signposted to anomalies for greater analysis, enabling them to spend their time delving into insight of the data rather than just running reports and running sort of retrospective analysis over what went wrong. We're seeing very clever applications that are able to take all of your customer data, so that that single customer view of yesteryear, which then became customer data platform, and they're actually able to learn from your consumer's behavior and give you the next best action almost in real time and activate any marketing endpoint that is required. And although there are a few of the big players and a few startups operate in that space, it feels like that will become baked into user experience design, and core platforms will have to offer that way of working with data to enable consumers to feel valued and have a streamlined experience. So for me, it very much is that machine learning layer and the ability, now that we've moved through gathering all this big data and wondering what to do with it, to actually being able to get some useful output from the guiding principles of machine learning and the capabilities of AI.
It's interesting. You've mentioned data multiple times so far. Marketing is not traditionally known for being data-driven. It's been more of an art than a science. Arguably, it has flipped. You mentioned you're a data-first agency. Talk a little bit about that, how you leverage that with your clients, and explain the value of data to them so that they understand on the back end how they've benefited from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for us, it's creativity is fascinating and powerful, and we have a great creative team that are enabled to to take data and to turn that into a concept that is likely to excite or interest or generally be remarkable in some way in the content that's produced. But they need a seed for that, and the seed has to be grounded in some form of fact for us. So for us, it's always, as a web analytics consultancy at heart, it's always been about starting with the web behavioral data, understanding the friction and flow and how consumers interact with your brand on these web applications, then broaden it to understand the qualitative and quantitative data that exists across the marketing, PR, and above the line advertising world, pulling all that CRM data together, and starting to build up a picture of who these customers are, not individually, but by traits, by behaviors, and then starting to look at these segments in a way of saying, well, what would serve these people better? And it might be a group of people that are frustratingly using an internal search to find an answer to something that isn't provided. And it can be as simple as providing users with those 2 steps of behavior, that content, when they land, and therefore smoothing the path to finding the answer they're looking for. So we're offering up the concept to the creatives to then say, here's a problem, the data's shown it's an issue, and this is the context you need to solve. The creativity then is layered on top and said, this is how we're going to present that and solve it. And if you scale that up across content strategy for a customer with thousands of products, or even in complex financial products, a data-driven strategy can cut through a lot of the institutional decisions and the decision by gut, and actually give you a framework of this will be proven to succeed, and then you can put that into a framework of measurement of success, and then actually then feed back and say, because you let data design this strategy, creativity informed how you executed it, but we've reported that this was successful. Advancements in recent years beyond web analytics, where we've had multi-channel attribution, and we, with some of our partners, pioneered this in the early years. We were able to look at the value of content. We were able to look at the full customer journey from the moment they first engaged with you, whether it was from a click-through on Facebook, or coming into a piece of content that was shared via someone else's email, or however they first engaged with you, and where the content featured in their their multi-touch, multi-device journey to eventually become a customer or repeat a purchase, or complete a desired success event. We were able to start to see that in the bigger picture and say, well, actually, content's really valuable to moving these dials in a really meaningful way. And SEO in particular, that a channel that's always been sort of close to my heart, was proved to have much more influence in the research and then the decision-making process. And again, it just enabled us to not change how any of the attribution was divvied out, but just to inform brands that actually these channels are important in these types of complex journeys, and sometimes they deserve more focus, more credit. So for us, having the data to design the structure of how you produce content for your users, and then the framework to report back how that performs and where the success is, and then ultimately to optimize that and to look to personalize and to iterate so that it continues to perform.
I assume that they appreciate both the data on the front end and the data on the back end that gives them a more accurate picture of where they are, where they need to go, and how they've done, obviously. And then when you're speaking to a non-marketer, perhaps in the finance department, they certainly understand exactly how that impacts their bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, building models like page value. So being able to show to a team that are not in marketing, that are responsible for maintaining and publishing content, why they should support X number of additional pages. We can show to a monetary value that has a relevance point to them, it has meaning, that maintaining these pages delivers this many visitors to this many next best actions, so therefore its value in this journey is this. And that has a meaningful number, and therefore they will support those pages rather than say,
right,
we'll streamline, we'll make the user journey as easy as possible and then remove all content. It's it's always good to have the data available to back up the case. Otherwise, it just becomes decision by committee, and the highest paid person in the room, or the most experienced person that's still there makes the decision, which works to a degree.
Right.
But data enables us to scale that beyond and to automate it. I mean, some of the work we've done with clients that have these massive global footprints. We talked about Sage, but if you look at Schroders, they're in 80 markets, and they're looking to make sure that their content performs in a relevant manner for all local markets. And it's a huge amount of consideration from a central global strategy to distribute that out to local market teams and to deliver content at scale cohesively. And without data and that centralized means of transmitting data in real time and feeding back on performance, it wouldn't be possible to have a cohesive strategy. You'd have fractured local markets operating in silos. And the brand's the better for it.
Let's talk a little bit about brand building. Would it be fair to say that the rules have changed as far as how a brand engages their end user or their end client? They have begun to find multiple ways. You talked about content, obviously, everything from their blog to their social, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see that evolution of brand building and how they're engaging with their end user?
I think social media very much was the advent of brands realizing, and some reluctantly, that they needed to be available in whatever channel their consumers wanted to communicate with them, and plan how to manage that. And for some brands, they still refuse to provide customer service in some of these channels, or automate it to the point of maybe damaging the brand by giving these robotic responses that quite clearly frustrate consumers more than they don't.
Right.
If you're not going to handle consumer queries, don't have a presence on those platforms. Feels a bit of a truer approach to take. But I think absolutely, if you look at the top end, if you look at the brands that are known for good customer experience, that have that at the heart of their values, then they're absolutely making strides to understand how and when their consumers wish to interact with them, and making sure that they have a presence and provide that. And as new platforms and technology evolves, that will need to be adopted as well. It's websites now. Who knows how far the voice revolution will go? I say I already see my children speaking to personal assistants in the house, and right. They may not know how to switch a light switch on by the time they're middle years. They may not be in our house. It may just be a request that they make by voice. And equally, if they make a request of a brand that they interact with, whether it's a kids TV brand, or whether it's they want something particular on the shopping list, the brand needs to be able to service that, whether it's via quick add to cart on voice search for Amazon, whether it's as they continue to evolve, whether it's them doing intelligent co-sponsored content that gets at the heart of how these children are evolving with technology. I mean, you just need to continue to move with your consumers, and I think a lot of brands have now adopted that, and consumer experience very much seems to be the mantra that we're hearing from the big technology players. So it's kind of gone from customer-centric design. It's gone from making sure that all the technology was relevant to all of the big vendor events that we've been to recently have all been about experience. It's all moved from customer to experience, and it's almost humanizing a lot of the brand touch points, which is fascinating to see the evolution.
Personalization seems to be the next great frontier, if you will. There's been talk of, instead of having one website for 1 million users, you would have 1 million websites for all dedicated to one user each. How do you see personalization? Where is it, and where it's potentially going?
It's definitely an area that's at various stages of maturity, in the same way that we talked about that multi-channel attribution view. That's still very much a maturity curve that a lot of brands are on their way up from. Personalization, for us, we see brands executing everything from hot fixes using personalization technology to stem errors that their applications and their slow-moving development infrastructure can't backfill, right through to brands using real-time attributed data to provide gentle nudges to next best action to feel like that flow through that user journey, whatever it be, maybe filling in a form, finding out the relevant FAQs to the query that you came to the site or into the app to answer. All of that being provided in a seamless way so that you don't actually know you're being personalized to. Right. Your experience is relevant for the journey you're on, and you just get there thinking, well, that was easy.
It's incredibly seamless.
It's incredibly seamless, and there is a lot of gray areas in between. I think there's definitely some steps in performance that will help that. I'm thinking of things like the restrictions of mobile networks, and some of the technology that we deploy for personalization does struggle to deliver a seamless mobile experience in some areas. So the advent of 5G and what comes after may well, really help the performance of those experiences. And personalization, I think we talked about privacy a little bit in GDPR. I think that's one of the really key areas that, outside of the filter bubble of digital marketing, brands will need to educate consumers in an appropriate manner that there is that value add trade-off that, if you've got an account and you shop with us, if you are a customer and use our services in any way, that the more we can iterate to the boundaries of what you're comfortable with and absolutely putting those preferences in the consumer's hand, the more you can iterate to their needs, the better their experience will be. And that trade-off is a much better seamless experience. It may be, as you say, it may be that it gets to the point that you and I open up the same platform, be it a Netflix, something like that, and have a completely different experience.
Exactly.
I may have, a sensitivity to the UI that actually they've realized by iterating that if they display it in this way, I'm more likely to have a satisfied experience of navigating and consuming their content. They may have more intelligent filters that realize, do you know what? My kids just watch TV through my account sometimes because they don't want to switch profiles. They just want to watch the fire engines now. Right. And they're able to filter that out and surface it based on time of day and preferences. And I, for one, are happy to share data to enable those types of improved experiences.
That's fantastic, and I could sit here and talk to you for hours and delve into that because I think it's a very relevant topic, particularly for some of the digital marketers. A question we ask all our guests is, are there any books that you can recommend for our viewers?
Absolutely. So we talked a bit about collaboration. I'm a big believer that whilst there might be competitive overlap, the value you add to customers or to technology providers by everybody working together and putting their best skills to the table. So with that in mind, a friend of mine, industry colleague, Kirsty Hulse, who runs Many Minds Digital, has recently written a book called The Future is Freelancing, where she shares an often hilarious, painfully hilarious story of her trials and tribulations, setting up both as a freelancer and then building what is essentially a network of peer-reviewed, trusted freelancers and experts across the globe that collaborate together under her administration to deliver large campaigns, everything from blue chip to startup. And not only is that model very close to my heart and how we developed with Yard over the last few years, but the way she writes is hilarious. So for anyone out there that's looking for a bit of a light-hearted look at what collaboration and little processes for customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction, like remote working, like allowing people to work to their best time and in their best location. It's a very good reflective take on how that part of digital marketing and employment as general is moving. So I'd recommend that. The Future is Freelancing by Kirsty Hulse.
The Future is Freelancing. Well, thank you. My guest today has been Ian Daniels, Head of Digital at Yard Digital. Ian, thank you so much. It's been an outstanding visit. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.